friends, this is Rupali Jain, communication and leadership coach. Why do you have to listen to this podcast right now? Because we will talk about creating systems and leveraging and how can women lead people. Do you know how great thing to lead when you have so much stuff inside and you are just crushing it? So let's welcome Sara to give us some valuable points to create systems and how can we lead people. Let's welcome Sara. Sara, how are you?
I am good. I'm so excited to be here. Oh my gosh, this is just my favorite ever.
Thank you. Same here. We are excited to listen. How can we have more time?
Absolutely. I think that's something that so many women business owners and just women in general really want more of, is more time to do the things that we actually want to do, right?
Yeah. So Sara, let's start with your intro. What do you do? Who are you? And why this Mommapreneur? There are lots of business out there. Why this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Sara Goosen. I'm a mom of 5 kiddos, a wife, an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur. Over the last 16 years, I've grown and leveraged and sold, and some walked away from businesses over the last 16 years. So it's really been exciting. And in that time, I've been a mom throughout, right? So the Momma Boss itself was actually birthed from a need that I had as a business owner, because I had mentors, I had gurus, as it were, who I was getting coaching from in business. And they said, hustle, grind, work harder. And just like all of the Momma Bosses and women listening, we can work harder with the best of them, right? Because we know we have to. We have to work harder than the men around us to get the same results or to get better results. And I think most of us, let's be honest, we have a little chip on our shoulder, and we feel the need to prove ourselves as well, right? And so I was getting all this business advice to hustle and grind and hustle and grind. And I was working 18 hours a day, 6 days a week. And I was overweight, out of shape. My children would ask me in the morning or at night, Mom, are you going to be home in the morning to wake me up? And I always knew, like, no, I'm not going to be, because I'm building my business, right? And it was just soul crushing. My marriage was on the rocks and things were just like a total mess. And I realized in that moment, like, there's got to be a better way, because other people aren't struggling like I'm struggling, but I know there's a lot of people who are struggling just like I am. And so I started the Momma Boss, and I went through this process of taking these 18-hour days, reworking my priorities and my schedule, and going from 18-hour work days to 3-hour-a-day work days, and actually reduced my time from those 80, 90-hour-a-week work weeks down to 12 to 15 hours a week. And so going through that process, putting myself through that process, I started to help women do the same thing, because of course you attract what you put out. And I had a lot of people like, Sara, I've seen how you've grown your financial success, but you seem to be working less and enjoying life more. Like, what's the secret? What are you doing?
Right.
Yeah, so that's what I do.
Wow, that's awesome. That's not doing, that's like creating a new thing. So can you give us some ideas, some steps that we can create a system for us? Everyone in the business is fighting for time, and we all have 24 hours. That's it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you asked that. So I think the biggest thing that we have to do is define what success looks like for us. Mm-hmm. So for me, we all have financial goals, right? And most of us have health and wellness goals. But when it comes to the other buckets of our life, whether it's relationships or leisure and time or leadership, right? We all have various buckets of our lives that are important to us, some more than others, right? And I think it's really important to break down each bucket of your life and how valuable it is to you, how important it is to you, and what success in that area looks like, right? Because as women in business, we know we want financial success. We know we want freedom, right? That comes with that financial success. But where so many women get it wrong is we're like, okay, well, I'm going to build this big, beautiful business now, and then I'll have freedom later. Right. The thing is, we have to bake that freedom in to the success that we're creating now, because otherwise we're just going to burn ourselves out and not even want it anyways. I mean, here's the thing. When I go reach that point of being like, I can't continue on this way, I remember turning to my husband and I told him, if this is what success feels like and this is what success looks like, I don't want any part in it. I don't want any part in it. And so I realized that chasing the money, chasing the numbers, chasing that rabbit, as it were, in business, I had forgotten about all the other parts of me that are so important, not only to me, but the people around me. And so really getting very clear on what success means to you in all of the buckets of your life. So with my clients, I actually break it down into 11 buckets. I know we go deep, deep.
Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. So the 11 buckets, we've got, of course, health and wellness, because your health is your wealth. If you don't have your health, you're not okay. I mean, that's just kind of what it is, right? Business, this is one that I think is always on our minds, and most people have it, right? Your business and how you make your money. Then there's contribution and just kind of how you want to give back to the world. I think that's important to evaluate that. There's your spiritual bucket, right? What are you doing to take care of your spirit, to make sure that you're grounded and connected? I have found that in the moments where I'm most grounded to my spirit and God, or whatever you want to call it, are the times when I'm able to make better decisions, right? Mm-hmm. Then there's fun and leisure. For me, this was a big one that I was neglecting, right? I love to travel. And because I was giving so much to my business, I wasn't traveling. I wasn't making memories. I wasn't doing the things that were important to me. So what I did is I put a lot of emphasis on this leisure and fun. And actually was able to take the last 2 summers completely off from my business while it continued to run for me, right? That was exciting. And then there's also, let's see here. So we've got your mental health. So you've got your physical health and you've got your mental health. Relationships. This could be your intimate relationship, but then there's also your social relationships. And I'm forgetting the other 3 right now off the top of my head, but I think that's probably enough to give people something to think on, right? I mean, that's like some deep stuff. Right. And so when you can pull back and you can look at what success in each area of your life looks like, for the woman out there who's burned out right now, she's probably not valuing the things that she says are of the highest value to her in her actions and time. Mm-hmm. So yeah, just figuring out what success looks like for you, first of all, and then going through your schedule and recognizing the areas where you're spending time on things that aren't that important to you, right? So it's one of those things I tell my clients, busyness for the sake of busyness is boring. You need to find the things. So that's why figuring out what your priorities are is so important, is because when you know what your priorities are, you can align your schedule and the tasks you do throughout the day with the things that are most important to you. So what I realized as I was going through this process is I was working 18 hours a day, right, but I was actually only doing about 3 hours a day of productive work. Everything else was busy work, like, checking emails, checking text, scrolling on Facebook, doing all of these things and convincing myself, oh my gosh, I'm just so busy. I'm just so busy.
So busy.
Yeah, exactly. I've got all of these things. I'm just so important. And the reality is I was just giving my time away. So when you can look at your priorities and then look at your schedule and look at the tasks you're doing throughout the day, you can get really clear on, are you spending your time how you actually should be spending your time based off what you say is important to you.
Right.
And so from there, you can look at the things that you were doing that are important to get done, but you don't have to do, and you delegate those things out.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And when you say delegate those things out, it means creating systems and processes around those things. So if you're like, okay, well, I have to check my Facebook messages on my business page, well, you don't have to do it, but someone can. Mm-hmm. Right. And so you bring someone in and you give them the process, have a few like frequently asked questions, and you give them the answers to it so they can copy and paste those answers. And creating the processes really is, on the front end, a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time. Mm-hmm. But there's a way but once it's done, it's done. And you don't even have to be the one who creates the systems and processes if you already have people in those roles. Mm-hmm. So if you already have people in those roles, so say you have a virtual assistant who's responding to all your social media, they already know the system. Just have them write it down. So then it is a system. So God forbid something happens to them and, a frog eats them or something, or they're abducted by aliens. You have those systems that you can hand off to someone else. And so I think it's really important to also be very clear on the things that only you can do and the things that someone else can do.
Right.
So it takes some doing to do, especially when we're like, oh, I'm so busy. It's hard to pull back from that and go, okay.
It's almost like we are giving our power away if we do the delegation thing. So it's like, I'm losing the control.
Yeah. Well, and that's where the leadership systems that I teach prevent you from losing control, mm-hmm. right? Because as a leader, when you hire someone, you're not just saying, here, do this, I'll check back later. Mm-hmm. You're saying, here, do this. This is the expectation that I expect to see, right? So if it's like a Facebook message, at the end of, your conversations via Facebook, these are the expectations I expect. So if someone is asking about how do I book an appointment, I expect that by the end of that interaction, they've booked an appointment, mm-hmm. right? And so having those, so I call it the 4 R's, okay? So you have your roles, responsibilities, requirements, and results. And you put that into a job description. And you can build that based off the things you no longer do. So like the role is maybe a virtual assistant. The requirements of the job is you need to know how to use a computer, mm-hmm. right? The requirements of the position are the tasks,
right?
Okay. And then the results is the outcome you're wanting based off those tasks that they have.
Okay.
So with that, you can hold the people you hire accountable to fulfilling those requirements, right? So you're not giving your power away, you're giving tasks away and you're keeping the power. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but there is one more confusion. Like someone will steal my leads. Like I have these leads, I build that email list and my virtual assistant will steal it, or the person other will steal it.
Don't hire people you don't trust.
But how do I know it's a virtual assistant, right? I'm here somewhere, she is there or he is there. So
yeah, which is where you have points of accountability built into their job.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be, what I really love doing with my teams is every day we do a huddle. So we do a daily huddle first thing in the morning, and it's just 10 minutes where they talk about what's going really well, where they're needing help so that I can help them if they need help, and just kind of move on from there. If you're worried about someone stealing your leads, or you're worried about someone stealing your proprietary system, they probably shouldn't be working for you, honestly.
Right.
And you can suss that out in the interview process and in the preliminary process. So you could have a 30-day or a 60-day probationary period where you work with someone, and just to determine if there's someone you can trust. Plus, I think a lot of, especially if you're looking at like VA positions, that sort of thing, you can also put permissions on what they have access to, which I think is pretty cool when it comes to technology these days.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us about leadership. How can a woman do the leadership role, and how can she integrate it?
Yeah, so leading, as soon as you hire someone, you are a leader. Actually, as soon as you decide you're a leader, you're a leader. And if you're starting a business, you're instantly a leader, even if you don't think you are. And so leadership really is about three things. It's about influence, it's about communication, and accountability.
Right.
So your ability to lead is you have to constantly be selling the people in your organization on the importance and the value of the work that you're doing within your organization. So that's part of leadership, is just constantly communicating your message, how important it is and how important they are within the organization. So that's the influence. You have the influence. And because you have the influence, it also means you have to communicate. And where I think a lot of people get leadership confused or wrong is they feel like they have to be like the strong, stoic leader, right? I handle everything. I share nothing with anyone. And what that does is it actually erodes trust with the people who work for you, because they look at it and they say, well, if she can't trust me with the things that are happening in her life, I can't trust her with the things that are happening in my life, or the things that are happening on the job. And so it's really also about creating this foundation of trust within your teams. And that's where the communication comes in. So you also have points of communication with your organization as a whole and with individuals. So your daily huddles that you do at the beginning of the workday, each and every day. Like I said, it's about 10 minutes. And then you do weekly meetings as a whole staff, monthly meetings as a whole staff, quarterly meetings as a whole staff, and then one-on-ones based off whatever cadence you decide works for you. And through that, you get a feeling and you ask questions of the people who work for you. What do you need? What are you most frustrated with? And really keeping that open, honest dialogue with them is key. But also being like, so there was a while back, my son was having some very challenging things happening in his life, and it was affecting the whole family. And I couldn't just go to work and be like, hey, everything's okay, when it really wasn't. So I was honest with my team, like, hey guys, this is what's going on. If I'm snippy or a little more short fused than I normally am, please know it has nothing to do with you, and it has everything to do with things that my family is facing. What that did is it made me human to the people who were working for me. And it also gave them some freedom to know that if something happened, it wasn't because of them. Because I think all of us have either had bosses or been bosses, where if something's been bothering us, we treat others around us very stonily, right? Like close them off, or are very direct and, I guess for lack of a better word, pert in our interactions with them. And what that does for the person who's working for you, it makes them scared that, oh my gosh, what have I done? Did I make her mad? Am I going to lose my job? What's going on? So it really becomes about treating your people as people and also leading them with your influence.
Right.
Yeah.
So how can you, so I'm very, what do you say, fascinated with your name, Mom.
The Momma Boss?
The Momma Boss. How did it come through? Like, why Momma Boss?
Yeah, so the Momma Boss. Well, I have been a mom for as long as I've been in business. So I had my son when I was 16, which is very young, but at that age, I had to figure out how to make it all work, right? Being a young mom and a young single mom, I had to figure out, okay, well, I've got to provide for my kid. I know I don't want to work for someone else. And I have to figure this out. And so I've always, in the time of being a boss of growing businesses, I've always been a mama. And I also know that as Momma Bosses, women in business who also happen to have children, we're constantly fighting this inner battle, right? The mom guilt and the boss guilt. Like, we want to work, we want to proceed, we want to give our all in our message and our mission, but we also really want to be incredibly active parents, right? And so that's where the Momma Boss came from. Is I thought, I'm not the only woman who's like me, who is ambitious, who has drive, who has an incredible desire to be a mom, and a good mom, as well as an incredible desire to make a tremendous impact on the world. And realizing that, I also realized as Momma Bosses, we need to have more support and we need to work differently than most people because we have different priorities. We have different things we're responsible for.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. So can you give us one book which is you appreciate, cherish?
Oh, a favorite book.
That's
a good one. There's so many. My favorite business money book is Profit First by Mike Michaelwitz.
Okay.
Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink is a really good one.
Okay.
Fierce Conversations by Susan Scott changed how I am a leader across the board.
Oh, wow.
If you're gonna like read any book about leadership, Fierce Conversations is the one you read.
Okay. And how about communication?
Communication? Yeah, that one. Honestly,
okay.
Fierce Conversations covers leadership. It covers communication. It's really just, it will completely transform how you show up to your team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you for sharing. So,
absolutely.
Now I want to ask you.
The biggest mistake I've made as a leader is not trusting my gut. So I had my entire team. So I had a gym, and my entire team was always very combative with me, and I allowed it. I did not do any correcting. I didn't hold them accountable. And they did what everyone fears is going to happen. And they opened their own gym half a mile away and took 85% of my clients. It was on Thanksgiving, actually, was the day that everything fell through. And what I realized from that whole experience, and that's actually why I am so passionate about leadership and becoming a better leader, is because I went through the transition of being, quite frankly, a shitty leader and not holding people accountable, not having those hard conversations, allowing people to get away with whatever they wanted to get away with, because I didn't want to do the work. And because that's what I was paying them for, right?
Mm-hmm, right.
And so going through that process and having this like huge thing blow up in my face and almost losing my business was probably the biggest blunder, the biggest mistake that I ever made. Was I didn't lead my team. I hired a team, but I didn't lead them.
Okay.
I didn't hold them accountable. I didn't have those hard conversations with them. And if I would allow the hard conversations that I did have with them to become very personal and explosive. And so what I mean when I say that, so I had a team member, and she was one of those that left and started their own gym. It was kind of like you could feel the tension building, but I was allowing the tension to build. And there was a day when we had a meeting, and she was on her phone throughout the whole meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And towards the end of the meeting, I'm like, WTF, like I lost it. And she turned around and she started yelling at me, saying it was my fault, and so on and so forth. And what I should have done in that moment is I should have fired her. I should have just let her go. But I didn't. I allowed her to set the standard for the other employees, and they all continued to treat me that way.
Mm-hmm.
Until everything exploded and they took all my clients. And it was a terrible, terrible experience, but it was also really good in the fact that it taught me what it is to be a good leader, and it showed me my own shortcomings. So I would say that's probably my biggest, most influential business mistake, was just the whole thing surrounding that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have control of my own business, and I allowed others to take control from me.
Right. It was hard, but
Mm-hmm.
good. You went through it.
Yeah. So now I help women avoid those pitfalls.
Yeah. You learned and you are teaching it.
That's right.
That's good. This is a life which teaches us, right?
Absolutely.
So you want to tell us more about some tips and tricks before leaving?
Let's see here. Tips and tricks. Take care of you first. I think it's really important for us as women in business to realize we are the most important person in our business. Because if we're not okay, we can't take care of our business, we can't take care of the people who work for us, and we can't take care of our families and those who matter most to us. So it's crucial that you take care of you. And that can be anything from taking care of your health, taking care of your mind, taking care of your spirit, but also not shying away from confrontation and having hard conversations. The other thing I'm also going to say is always lead with honesty. Mm-hmm. So many women have the desire to skirt confrontation to the point where we'll make things up, lie, or be passive aggressive, when what we really need to do is just face things head on, have hard conversations, and be 100% honest, even when it scares us, even when it's hard, and even when we don't want to.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Like women always like, no, I'll deal with it later. Let's pass it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the other person will not think about it. They will go away with it. Yeah. Right.
We have a tendency to diminish the importance of things to us. You know? and that's where I think that's where the danger in leading a team and business can really blow up in our faces, is when we've brushed things off
right
over and over again instead of just facing them head on.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Sara. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All